Well, I suppose I had seen his work in my art history classes in art school, but I became much more acquainted with it, better acquainted with it, once I had moved to New York after art school, and I would visit the Whitney Museum. And I particularly was struck by or felt an affinity for his interiors, which were mostly of these humble New York City apartments. Maybe partly because I myself was living in a humble New York City apartment at the time, but also the psychological content really resonated with me. In my work, I collaborate with a small team of actors and stylists to create fictional narratives in the form of painterly, large-scale photographs. I mean, I started making dioramas before I was photographing them. My very first job in New York City was working in an architectural supply store, and I was really inspired by the model building materials, and that's when I started making dioramas. And I suppose I did that for most of the 1980s. And then I got more into photography, and then I ended up bringing the dioramas back into the photography. So I use a lot of the same materials like balsa wood, things that I can cut without having to, use a power saw, anything like I just don't trust myself around a power saw. And I love working with my hands. So for me, it's a really nice adjunct to working behind the camera. So I get to work with my hands and I get to, photograph it. And I actually, photographing the dioramas is one of my favorite parts of the project, because that's when the final image really starts to come together. When I start lighting the diorama and choosing which lens I'm going to photograph it with. For me, that's when the image really starts to come to life, and that's in some ways the most exhilarating part of it. The response was quite immediate. I got attention really from all over the world. I was approached by people from Russia, magazines from China, galleries from France. It was really quite awesome. I don't know how else to describe it. Just the sheer reach that lens culture has was really quite striking.